explain it in a way that people will be able to make sense of it for themselves, and also to be able to get some sort of practical knowledge out of it. So since we haven't really talked about dreams in a while, we can definitely do that as a team, and I'll just put like a couple words in, and then I'll pass it over to Brianna, just to try and explain, like kind of answer the question, like, why should we be interested in our dreams, would be a sort of a good way to approach it. And yeah, like going back to what I was saying, like, why should we be interested in dreams? For me, becoming interested in the process of exploring our own dreams opens us up to the experience that we are multidimensional beings by nature. And in most cases, we don't remember much of our dreams, which is a crazy thing to think about, because there's a whole another part to us that is living and experiencing and learning in that dream state, that if we're not necessarily remembering all the time, then we're potentially not growing as effectively as we could. And it seems that through society, it's very easy for us to get into the habits, and we're quite sensitive to begin with, where we don't remember our dreams. But through techniques, through habits, through writing down your dreams in a dream journal and developing that dream memory, it begins to bring consciousness into your dreams. And eventually, you get to the state where you can have a lucid dream, which is a goal to work towards, but not necessarily an end goal. Is just a practice to be understood and developed. And having a lucid dream is, as many people know, when you're aware that you're dreaming within the dream, and then the big thing from there is that you realize that you can create within that dream, and your thoughts actually create. And sometimes even when you're like half in a lucid dream, you might find that you're creating in ways that aren't necessarily helping you. So you're like stuck in quicksand or something, and it's through the thought that you think you're in quicksand that keeps you there. But if you're just like, well, I could just float up out of this, then that is the thought that will direct you and move you towards that, presuming you don't hold on to like the doubt of your own intention. So you really have to, if you think you can fly, which is straight up Peter Pan style, which really makes it interesting when you think back as to like why so many of us are so familiar with that story and why it was such a popular story to be shared with children. And I think there definitely are some sort of like esoteric messages there about just, being able to perceive through the eyes of a child, et cetera, but also how thoughts create. So when you sort of realize that, the big kicker for that, and I'll pass this over to Brianna, the big kicker for that I get out of it is this idea that when you realize that thoughts create in that dimension, in the dream dimension, in the astral dimension, you begin to realize that thoughts also create within this dimension, within this reality. And then you begin to actually, in a way with that it's not as crazy as it sounds, you actually understand that this reality is a dream in itself. And it's just that dream that we're used to that has like different properties and different rules that are a bit more consistent. And because of that, the experience is very unique and very time-oriented and very, it's like a petri dish where with this element of time, things are able to grow in very unique ways. But we can still create within our thoughts can still create. So, that's what I get out of why we should be interested in learning about dreams. So, I hope that was a logical way of, a sensible way of putting it. And you guys tell me. I mean, even people in the live chat,
that was very well said.
Thanks. People in the live chat, if you thought that made sense, if you thought that would make sense, even if you didn't know what I was talking about ahead of time, then put in an 1111, because that's why we're practicing having this conversation in the show, so that I can say what I just said to someone at a bus stop and explain it to them off recording, so to speak, and so that you can do it too, so that we can continue to share this knowledge. So again, just practice. But yeah, Brianna, add in your thoughts. Why should we be interested in learning about dreams?